And now, insurance-minded speeches from Geico.
It's a common expression, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. However, what if the horse is...
It's going to be huge!
...tools? This is the exact case with the Geico app. Yes, the app is free and therefore a gift horse. However, look inside the app and behold, emergency roadside assistance, digital ID cards, bill pay. Get the Geico app. Look it in the mouth. Get amazing services. Thank you.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Unexplained with the Time Traveler and Mark Wren. And we will be talking today about a very controversial subject. Not that it should be. We all saw it happen. It's called the 9/11 terrorist attack. It happened on September 11th, 2001. A sunny morning in New York City and also in Washington, D.C., when apparently 3 different planes crashed into their targets, one in Pennsylvania, and at least 2 of these planes were apparently vaporized by the explosion. And even though we have many cameras that were trained on the Pentagon, not one has been released showing images of a plane crashing into it. But these are just some of the other questions, some of the big questions that surround this event. And now before, I'm a little bit hoarse here, but before we get into the issue of the 9/11, and we're going to have Mark Wren get on. Let me just see if he's in the studio yet. Not yet. I wanted to read an article that kind of encapsulates a lot of the stuff that, you know, people that have studied the issue and then have to kind of talk to people who, you know, really haven't, what they usually deal with. You know, because there's just so many things. It's like if you really delve into the 9/11 story and you start to do just basic research, you just get the feeling that something's really wrong about the story and it just doesn't add up. For example, why is it, even though physicists say it's impossible, that 2 airplanes crashing into the top of a building would bring both buildings down? Now, many would say that the fires that came from those explosions were so hot that the metal, for example, was melted. You know, this is the kind of thing that a lot of physicists just can't get behind, and there's been a huge number of them that have come forward to say, look, this doesn't make sense. Without a controlled demolition, those towers could not have come down in the way they did. We have Mark Wren in the studio, and so I will bring him on. What's up, Mark Wren?
Hey Logan, how's it going?
Good. And glad you can make it up. You know, we may get silence during this show because, probably not, because a lot of people talking about it. It is, you know, the 10th anniversary of 9/11. What are your thoughts on, I mean, was it a successful con job? Was it a successful, I mean, did the Bush administration plan this? Was this something they let happen? I mean, tell me what you think happened. Like,
well,
if someone let's set it up here. If someone just came down from another planet and just you to give like a 10-minute little explanation of what you think, you know, explain 9/11. Go ahead.
Well, I think I'd like to start by, you know, on behalf of yourself and me, you know, to pay our respects to the 3,000 people that died in the New York and Washington, Pennsylvania incidents. Yeah, I mean the 10th anniversary is coming up this Sunday, and it doesn't really seem 10 years. It seems like maybe 5, but you know, since that fateful day, the world has changed, and I think a lot of people agree it's changed for the worse. As for the actual incident, in a way, the 9/11 and the incident and various theories surrounding it have become our generation's JFK. People that were alive when JFK was assassinated have always had opinions. I mean, we've covered this on other shows before. It's a famous case of the saying of you always remember where you were, when you heard such and such news, and people from that generation always remember where they were when they heard Kennedy was killed. And I think for our generation, it's a case of where were you and what were you doing, what happened when you heard the news about the about the 9/11 attacks, about especially when the towers fell. But I mean, there's been documentaries, there's been movies based on some of the conspiracy theories or not conspiracy theories, trying to just make sense of what happened. There is a lot of information out there, and we're kind of fortunate that we're in this age, and a lot of ways of accessing media that wasn't available in the days of the Kennedy assassination. So there seems to be a lot more tools for people to decide, to investigate, to assess the evidence of what actually happened on that terrible day.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who kind of scoff at any suggestion that it was a false flag operation, and because you don't understand what that means. That's a term when a government will plan an attack and then stage it as though it's coming from a foreign enemy. It's called a false flag. And if you are somebody who just can't get your mind around the fact that the government would even think of doing such a thing, a good start for you to check is called Operation Northwoods, and this was actually a plan that was presented to Kennedy, who we just mentioned, to attack certain buildings in Chicago and blame it on Castro in order to precipitate, our involvement in military action in Cuba. Of course, Kennedy did reject that plan, but this is not an unusual thing for a government to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you you've mentioned Operation Northwoods, which I think probably a lot of people don't actually know about, but it's out there on the internet if you want to read up on it. But if you look through if you just look through history although it's a little bit of messing with your mind to think that can our rulers, can our governors, can our presidents and prime ministers and kings and queens, can they be this evil? But if you look through history, it's littered with incidents where these people in charge have done these things to the people to further their own means. If you look at way back in history, if you look at going back to Roman days, you had I think it was Emperor Nero, set fire to Rome to blame it on the Christians, to carry on the persecution that was going on at the time, and even in recent history, well, not so much recent history, but certainly the 20th century, before World War II, Adolf Hitler burned down his own government building, the Reichstag in Germany.
Yeah, the Reichstag fire. Right.
Yeah, Reichstag fire. Blamed it on
that Bush did. I mean, he sat on top of the rubble and claimed that he was going to get the terrorists who did this.
Yeah, I mean, Bush made that speech saying, we're going to hunt them there, we're going to hunt them there, we're going to dig them out of their foxhole, we're going to, want you dead or alive, kind of the old Western spirit. But it seemed like after.
If you look at Hitler's speech, Hitler had the same speech. I mean, when the Reichstag fire happened, I'm just comparing it. Yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, the Hitler thing was, we'll find our energies. We're going to. I think Bush's famous quote is, "We're going to smoke them out."
Right.
We're going to find our enemies. We're going to we're going to crush them. And I think there are parallels between. It's strange, yet there are parallels between someone as evil as Hitler and someone as possibly as evil as Bush, or certainly certainly not intelligent, or whatever people want to criticise about Bush. The fact that shortly after the Hitler incident, Hitler set up his own homeland security. And what happened
and he
after
called
that?
it almost the same thing.
Yeah, literally called it. I'm not sure what the exact term, fatherland security or something like that. But literally, mirrors Bush's set up of homeland security not so long after the 9/11 attacks, to sort of protect the nation's interests and to inadvertently, or maybe not inadvertently, it's created this kind of age of paranoia and Big Brother and government poking their nose into every citizen's aspect of every citizen's lives. The trouble that you have at airports now, the trouble that you can have buying a gun or getting credit or hiring a car. There's so much background checks now. I don't, we're in an age now where I think this is here for good, and I don't think anything's going to be relaxed anytime soon. I mean, if you can go to, I go abroad maybe once or twice a year, and the problems at airports, with the queues and security are always a big hassle. You just have to, kind of keep your mouth shut and just suffer it. But it's certainly not ideal.
And it's funny too, because it's perfect, when you have corporate control and they more and more infiltrating more government, so that corporations that operate have lost a lot of their rights. If corporations are to take over, they're going to want that, and so it coincides with the corporate takeover of the world. To instill fear and to make people accept, all these very precautions.
Yeah, I mean you're right. We're now in an era. I think that Bush, kind of famously said, you're either with us or you're against us. You're either with us. Or you're with them, meaning, the terrorists, and there'd be so many speeches of Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld just saying terrorists and Al-Qaeda and Taliban, just so many times. It's almost like a form of mind control, just kind of constantly just drumming these terms into people's heads, creating this sort of this air of paranoia and kind of Big Brother in 1984 and.
Speaking of which, that's a great book, because it's almost like they took it as a manual,
Yeah, it's like if you don't trust your government, then there must be something wrong with you. But history is littered with subterfuge and everything from and betrayal and conspiracies within governments, even going back past Watergate and Iran-Contra and things like that. I mean, governments have always lied to the people, whether it's for their to further their own means, or as what's often stated, a famous way of wording it is national security. That's always the thing that's always trotted out. It's in the interest of national security all the time. National security.
Right. Yeah, that's always a common thing that people will say. Now, I just want to set up, so the official story tells us that how many hijackers? 17 or 19? 19.
19.
Came, yeah, 19 used box cutters, and their plan was. They came in and they got through security with these box cutters, and then they proceeded to, take some stewardess hostage, and then get to the cockpit and force them to open it, and they took control of the planes, and then they crashed the planes into these buildings. The buildings fell because, I mean, this is an official story, because the fire that burned, from these planes when they hit the top of these buildings was so hot that it melted the core of of these giant buildings that are meant to withstand such incidents. I mean, it's not like they didn't contemplate the possibility of a plane going into the top of the building. So it's like they're set up to sustain, a hit from a plane, yet they collapse on themselves almost in the fashion of a controlled demolition, but yet that was just due to all this hot burning, even though we have never in the history of the world seen a building come down like that quickly because of a fire, any fire. So even fires that have been burning for days on end, but much less a few hours. But that's the story. Also, the plane veered off and was taken over by a bunch of passengers in Pennsylvania, and it crashed, leaving no fuselage and virtually no evidence at all that a plane even crashed there. And then you have a plane apparently crashed into the Pentagon at around the same time, and that plane left a hole that was a lot smaller than a plane would have made, and also was none of the debris were there's no pictures of any debris, and it's hard to see where the debris went. It's like it vaporized. But all this is part of the story. Yet there are no camera shots of a plane going into the Pentagon. That's the story, that a plane went into the Pentagon. Now, many people dispute that part of it. So why don't you talk about what the whole notion of the Pentagon and what happened to it?
Yeah, I mean, there's footage of like a security camera which is I think it's positioned near a vehicle entrance point to the Pentagon, and the government have released video footage of
it's one camera.
Just very, one camera. Yeah, one camera. Yeah, one camera in the most heavily protected building in the world. Just one camera was working, and it looked like a bad webcam, and you don't really see a plane at all. You just kind of see maybe a bit of motion, a movement, and then an explosion, and you just see a kind of a ball of fire, just flames. Apparently there were other cameras in the area at gas stations, and I think some local stores, and the authorities quickly obtained the footage from those cameras, and they've never been shown, and who knows what's happened to those. Maybe they've been destroyed, or tucked away somewhere from inquisitive eyes. So who actually knows? But certainly from what you see of the thing, the gap in the building doesn't appear to be enough to have contained a large commercial airplane, and I would have thought that if a plane crashed into the Pentagon, then with the size of the wingspan of these planes, you would have seen a bigger hole, and more of a mess than what it was. I mean, I don't know. There's lots of theories about whether it was some kind of missile or one of these drone planes that had just been sent there.
I'm pretty sure it was a plane, because people that I know that wouldn't lie actually saw it. They saw a plane, but it was a smaller plane. It wasn't, a 747. So it was probably like some kind of guided missile that was, created to look like a plane or something like that.
Yeah, I think that could be right. That the plane could have been mocked up with, with the colours of United Airlines, so that people, because I mean this plane literally kind of crossed over freeways or roads heading into the Pentagon, and people the obviously drivers that were on the road said they actually saw a plane go over them, but whether you could tell from from that close up, the sheer size of the plane, whether it was a real kind of a jumbo jet plane or whether it would be something slightly smaller that's travelling at a fast speed, who knows? But that's, the Pentagon attack is one of the things that a lot of people have questions about, as well as something that we'll get onto later, which is building number 7.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that in a second, but I just want to finish up with this because there is this, this problem that, and this happened in the 9/11 site too, was so much of the debris was just quickly gathered up and, just burnt and melted down. And apparently that's what happened with the fuselage of the plane. Like, people came in and they just picked it up really quickly. And it was almost like, fucking with a crime scene at that point. And so, so there was no way to examine the fuselage of whatever it is hit the Pentagon. And so, to this day, it's, no camera except for that one little shitty one. And, it raised a lot of questions. So let's go to, building number 7, which, incidentally, here's a fact that you won't believe, but it happened. Why, and it's a question that a lot of 9/11 truth people ask, is why did news agencies report that the World Trade Center number 7 collapsed almost a half hour before it did collapse? Even though it was not hit by a plane and only had a few floors that were on fire and gave no indication that it was in any serious danger. So why don't you talk a little bit about Building 7 there?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when you first start talking, the first news footage was actually from my own country's BBC footage. Is that what you're referring to? The BBC there's I think there's probably footage somewhere on YouTube or somewhere around the internet you can find it. There's a BBC British reporter. I think it's a lady. She's standing there. She's saying, "We've just heard that another building has fallen, and it's the Solomon Brothers building, which is the BBC." Yeah, the BBC. Yeah, and she says the Solomon Brothers building, which is the company that was in that building. I mean, the official name of the building, it was World Trade 7. And you can quite clearly see as she's talking, like the building's like behind her, and it's like, well, it hasn't gone yet. Have the media got word that it will be coming down, or not? And then you've got a famous interview with Larry Silverstein, who actually owned the World Trade Center complex, and he's talked about World Trade Center, being asked about World Trade Center 7, and he mentions it in the interview that he says there were some fires there, but I spoke to the fire chief or police chief, and we made a decision to pull it. And if you're in if you're in the construction destruction business, the term pull it means to demolish, and if you're going to demolish any kind of size of a building, it literally needs, at least 1 to 2 weeks planning to set the charges at certain, weak points in the building to destroy it in a way that won't affect other buildings around it, and to demolish it in the, correct and proper way.
Absolutely. And it was I think it was a little bit of a fuck up on the part of whoever wired stuff, that I think they meant to set that off, at the same time that they set the other building off, and then they kind of forgot, and they're like, oh shit, we have to get rid of this building too, probably for insurance reasons,
Yeah, because it was like a lot later on in the day that fell. I mean, obviously the Twin Towers fell in the morning, and the World Trade 7 fell later on in the afternoon, probably, if I'm thinking correct, maybe around 4 or 5 p.m. But obviously a lot of time, and the thing with World Trade 7, why this is kind of a big deal to people that are investigating it. The World Trade 7 was a complex that housed private businesses, private companies, as well as it was the New York offices of like the Secret Service, and the FBI, and the CIA. So these, this building, contained a lot of files and documents, and and it's led to people talking about the documents in there to do with money laundering or financial irregularities, and things like that. And of course, they're all lost in the they're all lost in thing. I think there was a press conference like a day or two before 9/11, and I think they were talking about the budget or money troubles in government, and they'd done some sort of accounting and discovered that there was like 2 or 3 trillion like unaccounted for. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with that. I think someone asked Rumsfeld, or it was either Rumsfeld or Cheney, were asked about defence budgets or money irregularities, and they basically said, at the moment we're 2 or 3 trillion, we can't find where it is. And as soon as 9/11 happened, everyone seemed to ask, well, hold on, this is a lot of money, where's it gone?
Interesting. So you're suggesting that part of this whole thing was a giant caper of maybe several $1 trillion, and then all of course the money laundering that was allowed to happen after all the wars. I mean, war is the best front for a money laundering operation. When you're trying to steal all the money from the treasury, the best way to do it is to start a war and then ship that money in the form of footballs. I mean, the Bush administration actually did this in Iraq. They created footballs of money, of cash, and they passed them out to people in Iraq. So it's like these guys were just ready to loot the treasury, and this was the first, seed to do such a thing. And there's all these questions surrounding Building 7, and people sort of like, they don't understand like what the big deal is. They're like, so what? So this building fell a little bit later, but it kind of just points to the notion that the buildings didn't have the 2 big buildings that came down didn't have to come down based on, and so many physicists say this, they're like, the fire there's no way the fire could have gotten that hot that the buildings would have come down the way they did. And the fact that the Building 7 was said that they lied about that. They said that it fell on its own weight, or it fell because of the fire that was in there was tiny. What that sort of opens the door to the fact that they're willing to lie. It's a clear, obvious lie. So then you say, well, if they're lying about that, then what else are they not telling you, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, talking about the Twin Towers, I think people that have investigated the kind of technical aspects of it, I don't think there's ever been a case in history where a building has collapsed on its own due to fire, and fire, right. The fire has to burn has to melt steel at a certain temperature to do so, and they're saying about it's the plane crashed through and it cut the columns, and it like this pancake theory, I think they call it, which the top the floors above a certain section became too heavy for the ones below, and it just pancaked down, so it looked like a demolition. I'm really not sure, because I've seen footage and it looks like lower as the building is collapsing. There's like lower floors, and you can see kind of what looks like kind of explosions coming out of windows and coming out of the sides of the building. It looks very suspicious.
Yeah, those are called squibs.
Yeah, squibs. Yeah. So I mean, who knows whether obviously the planes were used to try and bring down the buildings, and maybe the bombs or explosions were like a backup plan, plan B. But whatever happened, I mean, I was not working on the day, with the time difference, it was like I think like 2 in the afternoon or so. And I actually had the BBC channel on, and they said we're hearing reports from New York that an aeroplane has hit the World Trade Center in downtown New York, and the first reports they said it was a small commuter plane, and I thought, well, that must be a kind of a lousy pilot, or didn't he just see this big building right in front of him? What's happened? And then maybe 10-15 minutes later, they're saying, well, we're hearing actually it wasn't a small commuter plane. It was it's a commercial airliner. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound right. And I kept watching it, and then all of a sudden, the second plane struck, and then you knew that something was up. And all the channels over here, and I mean you're in New York. I mean, I don't know where you are in New York. Whether in Manhattan or Brooklyn or Queens or wherever in New York. But I mean, were you there that day? How close were you to the to where it all happened?
I was working like a night shift, so what's interesting was I really didn't go through that day at all. Like, I went to sleep around like 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning.
Yeah, you missed most of it.
I missed the whole. I woke up in the evening when everything had already, like, a lot of the dust had settled. Like, and in many ways, like, it's one of the reasons why I think I've been able to be objective about this day. It's like I didn't really feel the fear that I know that at a certain point, at least people were telling me that there was like this feeling that like anything could happen, and it was like this real scary moment for the United States, and that's part of the reason why the United States became such, was able to get us, that they were able to get us into all this horrible war and torture and all these other things, because everybody was just really scared during that day. But I, like I said, I was spared that for some reason or another. Maybe.
Yes. So I mean, as the day unfolded, I mean, it became, a little bit later on in the day, in UK time, and I was watching the BBC News and the Sky News, and I was watching it with my father, and they were obviously the second plane had hit, and then shortly after the second tower had gone down. I think we were watching the footage, and I think I remember saying to my father, I said, I've just got a feeling that either one or both of those towers are going to collapse. I don't know why I kind of felt that, but I just felt that they were going to come down. And then when all the reports came in about a plane that hit the Pentagon, it almost became kind of like a Hollywood movie, and there was all these news reports of possible other hijacked planes, and then there was
I remember that. Yeah, I remember there was like, even when I noticed what was happening, like in the evening, they were saying that there were other planes in the air, that they didn't know that where they were, and like I couldn't. I mean, I was like, are you? And then it just, no one ever talked about that shit again. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I mean, it was strange because you were on the edge of your seat watching like a horrible tragedy unfurl, and it was almost like an action Hollywood movie. You really didn't know what happened next. There, these reports flashed on the screen saying there's another plane that's been hijacked, and it's heading for the White House, or there's a little Capitol building, and I'm sitting there, with my father, and I'm saying, I mean, how unbelievable would that be if the aeroplane crashed into the White House? That would be like the most unbelievable thing you would ever see in your life, like on television, if something like that happened, because you'd had, like Independence Day, the movie where the alien spaceship kind of blew up the White House, and I remember being in the movie theatre and like the audience cheering. It was kind of really strange, but obviously the plane that was supposedly headed for either the White House or the Capitol building was the plane that was United 93, which was the one that supposedly crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, which leads on to another thing. did the plane get brought down by heroic passengers trying to battle these terrorists, or what is possibly my belief, and that it was actually shot down?
Well, that's the question, because when people went to where the site was, of course, right after, it's like a plane usually goes down in bigger pieces than just that plane broke up into many pieces, and a lot of the fuselage was missing and never made it anywhere, and it was just like almost a vaporized plane, and so how could that? And then there's all this talk, now that Cheney's back out with his book, all this talk about, somebody had given an order to shoot down, a civilian, shoot down a civilian. And that it's like they probably shot it down, and they probably decided that that wouldn't be a good thing to tell people, so they made up this story about the heroic hijacker, because it was so convenient, because the whole "let's roll" thing. Remember?
Let's roll.
Like an expression.
Yeah.
It was like the guy who was in the plane who he was talking to his wife on his cell phone, even though nobody's cell phone worked. It was like, yet his phone worked, and he was talking to his wife, and he was telling he was saying that he was plotting, to take over the plane from the terrorists and then crash it, and that's what happened. And they even made a movie about it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they made a movie about it. I mean, I've seen the movie, and it's obviously well done. But all the movie reviews were like 5 stars, 10 out of 10, saying it was like the most unbelievable movie, and it was the greatest movie. And it's only the greatest if you really believe what the government's told you. But I've got a feeling that plane was shot down, because I think there's been reports of like parts of that plane being found like kind of 10, 12 miles away from Shanksville, and if it's if parts are being found that far away, then it was shot at in mid-air, and it's been destroyed, and the parts have gone here, there, and everywhere, rather than if you actually look at the kind of alleged crash site, the hole looks like not much bigger than maybe like a dog, trying to bury a bone, if you will, kind of scratching around with its paws, and and digging a hole literally the size of try and guess the size of it, maybe the size of let me see, well, probably less than the size of like a boxing ring or a wrestling ring. Really, the hole's not big at all.
Hey, we have a caller on the line. Let me
cool.
get the person on. Area code 407. You may just be listening. All right, do you have a question? Okay.
No, I don't have a question. I just had a comment and just wanted to say that I support you all, and I think you're doing a good job, and I'm just going around supporting all the shows that are speaking at this time, that are actually making sense and speaking common sense about what really happened on 9/11. And, the work that you all are doing.
Thank you.
That's good work.
Okay, thanks, man. Thanks. Do you want to stay on hold?
Well, I'm gonna, yeah, I'll stay on hold.
Okay. Yeah, because, some people listen through your phone. But anyway, so... oh, wait, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I said that I can listen on the computer. But I just wanted to also say that I think that whole, this is me personally, but I feel, that whole shebang with the whole jobs thing that they set up yesterday with this Jobs Building Act. Personally, I feel that they could care less about jobs in America, based upon the evidence, pretty much. And I believe they just set all that up to draw in the attention of everyone, so that they hit us with the whole 9/11 terror threat. which they went right into it basically after the Jobs speech. And, you know, I think they're just trying to lead people on to believe as much as possible to continue to believe in this whole outsider strike.
Yeah, they need the external enemy to get us to accept the new world order, as it were. So yeah, I agree with that. Thanks for listening, man.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, talk to you later. So in general, though, I mean, like, just to finish up about the Pennsylvania thing, I just thought it was just so convenient for them, you know, to even have, like, it was like they even branded it. It was like the whole thing. I mean, and to me, it's like amazing also that if 9/11 had happened under Bill Clinton, like, it would just be a whole different thing. Like, they would have blamed it on him. They would have used it to you know, make him look like he couldn't, you know, do foreign policy. On the other hand, with Bush, it like really helped his popularity, and it made him a you know, a hero, which I just found very odd, given that it was kind of their, you know, it's like on their watch that this horrible thing happened. I mean, you can imagine if something happens when Barack Obama is president, like the right wing will just savage him and say, well, this is because, you know, you couldn't protect us, and, you know, so it just, to me, it was fascinating how it worked out for them, you know.
Yeah, in a way it worked out good for Bush, because, you know, it obviously it was his first term, and he wasn't doing. It was quite early on in his presidency, but he wasn't proving very popular in the opinion polls. He was kind of, you know, ranking as one of the kind of least, you know, popular, you know, presidents, and all of a sudden this thing happened, and, you know, kind of, you know, Bush kind of got in his cowboy hat and, you know, kind of acting a bit like John Wayne, and, you know, we're not going to take this, you know, we're going to go there, we're going to smoke them out, we're going to just bomb everything, and, you know, it got a lot of, you know, the American public, and, you know, kind of a gung-ho spirit of, you know, you know, USA, let's get out all our flags, we're not going to take this shit from anyone, we're just going to go around the world, punch him first, and, you know, ask questions later, and that set off a lot of resentment around the world, and Bush was
by intention. I mean, it was almost like provocative at the point where he was like, you know, you're with us, you're against us, let's roll, you know, using the guy's expression from the hijacked plane. I mean, it was just like this perfectly choreographed mind fuck on American people. And they got us into Iraq, and got us to accept torture, and got us to accept wiretapping. So all these things that we would never have accepted, you know, even, you know, we would never have wanted to go to Iraq. So
yeah, that's right. I think that. Yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say. I mean, we've kind of, you know, I think that most people know the basic facts of 9/11 and the actual, you know, the terrible events that happened that day. But perhaps kind of what's more important in a way is, you know, is the aftermath of 9/11 and all the changes that have been made in our society since then. You've obviously got, you know, the US and Britain certainly, and a few other allies, you know, are now in kind of 2 or 3 wars around the world, and they've been kind of, you know, bombing merry hell out of Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran, and the war is costing billions and trillions of dollars, no doubt. It was all kind of, the fallout of the 9/11 was obviously, you know, we're going to find out, you know, who did this, and the number one suspect was Bin Laden, and, you know, he's probably in the caves in Afghanistan, so let's go and just carpet bomb the whole place and make it look like a parking lot. And then there was this whole kind of deal, you know, to do with you'll probably remember this, you know, the weapons of mass destruction. You know, we've got to go at these places because they have weapons of mass destruction, and they can, you know, put these chemical bombs, and they can reach us in 45 minutes, and, you know, we need to get rid of these dictators, and we need to get rid of these tyrants. And,
which begs the question. I mean, it's like the fact that they were always like, what if 9/11 was done with a nuclear, device that they could get.
Nuclear suitcase, yeah.
And my question was always, well, if they were going to do it, if they really wanted to do something to the United States, why wouldn't they wait until they got that nuclear suitcase instead of doing this little attack and then just having us come over there and bomb the shit out of them? You know what I'm saying? It's why would they deal us in the first instance a death blow that we couldn't recover from? Instead, they hit us with something that we easily recover from and then come back and have war with them. I mean, what advantage could they possibly be gaining doing the 9/11 attack, right? I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I've often wondered, what was there, if we're going along with the official story of, it was Al Qaeda and it was Bin Laden that was the mastermind of it. I mean, what was their actual motive? Because I've never been aware of a motive, and I think the official line of saying what their motive is that Bush and his cronies always trotted out was they don't like our freedom. Did you ever hear that? It was always trotted out. Bush and Rumsfeld and Cheney would always say, they attacked us because they don't like our way of life, they don't like our freedom. And I thought, well, why would they do all this? What's that got to do with anything? That is a strange, motive to start, wrecking people's lives and killing people because they don't like our freedom. It seems very strange. Still there? Hello?
Go ahead, man.
Sorry, you dropped off or I dropped off or something. What was the last? You dropped off?
I dropped off. The last thing, you must have been talking about go ahead, because I could. Everybody else heard you but me, but I kind of knew where you were going. So if you want to
I was just, the actual motive for the attacks. I mean, the official authorities always said, it was because Bin Laden and Al Qaeda, they didn't like our freedom, they didn't like our way of life, and I always thought that was a strange motive why you would start hijacking airplanes because you're jealous or because you don't like the way that someone lives. I mean, most wars are started over religion or invading a territory, and this one was based on some sort of theory that they don't like the Western culture, they don't like the way they live, they don't like the way we live, right. So we'll just we'll do all this mischief to mess with them. That seemed like a strange motive to me.
It was, and it was also strategically if you're gonna go after a tiger, do you just kick the tiger in the face? It's is that really the answer to starting a war with the United States where you're gonna lose? It's just, to me, it's if you have the capability to do an attack like that, and people were talking about how they thought about flying over and crashing the plane into the nuclear facility, for example, at Indian Point, where in New York over here, and it was why didn't they? And the answer is that it wasn't the enemy. It was a false flag operation. It's right there, just the fact that they didn't do the most destructive thing that they could have done, which it to me tells me that that this isn't an enemy that really was fighting us. Because any real enemy would have really dealt us a real blow, and not just one that would have precipitated us going over there and decimating their sanctuaries, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the whole fallout of the thing of we've got to go to these places because they got weapons of mass destruction, and they sent in these teams of people to look for them, and these so-called weapons of mass destruction, they were never found. They had these NATO teams go in and these chemical inspectors and things, and they never found these things, and yet the war still stayed ongoing. They ended up, one of their famous sort of saying, kind of regime changes, and they ended up getting rid of Saddam Hussein, and currently they're kind of, they got all the problems with Gaddafi in Libya, and obviously Bin Laden.
Let's talk about what these wars were really intended to do, because obviously the Iraq War was for the oil fields in Iraq, but a lot of people don't realize that the Afghanistan War had to do with a pipeline, and a pipeline that was being objected to by the current regime in Afghanistan prior to 9/11. That is, the Unocal, which was the company that was going to build this pipeline from the Caspian Sea, I think to pump, natural gas, but I'm not sure exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
And so they went to the Taliban actually came to the United States, came to Washington to meet with the Bush administration, and the Bush administration basically offered them a road paved with gold or a road paved with bombs. And they said, take the road paved with gold, let us build a pipeline underneath your country, and, you'll be spared our bombs. And basically they said, fuck you, we're not going to do it. And then all of a sudden 9/11 happens, and guess what we're building in Afghanistan right now? So, and guess who the president of Afghanistan is? It is the former head of Unocal. So,
exactly.
Karzai. So it's
exactly,
like that was the purpose of that, war. And all these wars are all based on this kind of shit.
That's it. It's all these people are all connected. It's all this kind of old boys network. You always find whenever there's a position comes up, an executive position comes up, it's someone that's been a former part of another project nearly always gets the vacant position. And they're going back to the pipeline business and the whole business of kind of rebuilding Afghanistan. The contracts went to Halliburton, and who was the former kind of head guy at Halliburton? Donald Rumsfeld.
And Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
And the point is that all these wars have an ulterior motive. And in Iraq, I would argue that all those inspectors, those weren't real inspectors. Those were people that were out there scoping exactly where the oil was, exactly where the oil fields were, so that when they sent the troops in, they knew which areas that they were going to secure, because they didn't care about anything else.
They were like location scouts in the TV and movie business. They go to a location to scout it out to see whether it's a viable prospect. And these guys were under the kind of guise of weapons inspectors or chemical inspectors or whatever, but in a way they're doing these reports, and the reports are obviously getting back to the people that want to know pertinent details, and then the things start moving from then onwards.
Yeah. So let's go back then to this to just what we were talking about, the attacks, because this was the setup. And we should also just mention the project for the New American Century, because there was this paper that was drawn up, basically titled "The Project for the New American Century," and you can look it up, which came out from the Clinton administration, which was a direct letter to the president, basically saying that we needed to invade Iraq for X and Y and Z reasons, and it was rejected by Bill Clinton. But in that report, it said that, we probably wouldn't have the political will to attack Iraq unless we had another Pearl Harbor. And so then we see with 9/11 that we have that Pearl Harbor, and then, of course, the plans are made to go into Iraq. I mean, is that just a coincidence? Are we this stupid, people? I mean, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you're right with this. I mean, project for the New American Century, which is, when people refer to it, they often refer to it as PNAC.
Right, and the authors. Just want to finish up. The authors are the
bunch
actual
of neocons.
The neocons that are now, that were then, as in 2001, in the Bush administration, leading foreign policy. So
yeah, and I think it literally came out around about a year or 18 months or so before 9/11, and you know the guys that were part of this kind of think tank, you know, that were making this report, you know, were the kind of usual suspects of Bush cronies and Washington higher ups. You know, Donald Rumsfeld was part of it. There was, I think, one of the main guys was a guy called Paul Wolfowitz, which I think, another guy called Robert Zellick. And basically what you're saying, that you know they couldn't kind of advance, you know, the American kind of world dominance any further, you know, short of, you know, like a new Pearl Harbor event, you know, that would kind of create kind of like an ongoing war, you know, like I think Rumsfeld kind of said that this thing would be like a 100-year war, you know, almost be like a never-ending war. But I mean, it's this whole report kind of outlined kind of, you know, the American sort of diplomatic, political, and military power, talking about, you know, the resources that are obviously in the Middle East. Obviously, the oil resources are the main thing. Another thing, obviously, I don't think this was covered in the report, but this is another thing that I've heard that's been mentioned about Afghanistan, is that they've got like a huge, vast amount of poppy fields, and poppy fields create opium, and you've got the whole drug smuggling type thing.
Thank
and,
you.
know, yeah. There's been so many reports of basically of American military over there just kind of guarding these, you know, poppy fields, and even helping, you know, with, you know, kind of you know, the maintenance of these things in a way, you know, guarding the, you know, this kind of the drug culture that's so prevalent in society today. Very strange.
And an interesting fact about that is that the Taliban, they were actively destroying poppy fields. So the Taliban were against the growth of heroin, and the heroin now has grown exponentially since we invaded in Afghanistan, and so has been supplying now. I mean, you can imagine the money rolling in from just that alone. And the brother of Karzai is one of the head heroin dealers, you know, distributors in the country. So there you go, another business motive, ulterior motive. I mean, probably even more lucrative than the pipeline. You know, when you think about it.
Yeah, certainly not far off in terms of money worth. Yeah, I mean they're both very valuable in their own unique ways.
And this is the reason why we're still there. This is the reason why the Afghanistan war is the longest war we've ever had, because they are building a pipeline. So, I mean, it's like they're still not finished, and they're not going to be finished for another 10 more years. So, there you go. It's just amazing how people are so, like, able to manipulate others through this patriotism shit and through this fear, you know. And you think about, like, okay, so Afghanistan is the base of operations for Al-Qaeda, which attacked us. And so this is the reason why we're there. And of course now they're saying, oh, they fled into Pakistan. But, I mean, for all practical purposes, they could have gone anywhere at this point. So it's like the notion that we have to go to a specific location to snuff them out is like, it's whack-a-mole as a foreign policy. And it makes no sense. It only makes sense to a child.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right, yeah. Another part of, obviously, the fallout of 9/11 were, you know, the torture and rendition and things like that became more reported on in the media. And you would also, I mean, probably arguably the most popular program probably of the last decade has been the program 24, which kind of deals with, you know, the whole terrorism sort of aspect in the world, and you would have, the Jack Bauer character, literally, interrogating people, torturing people, just to get things out of them. And this led to, revelations in the press, talking about, was it Al Ghraib, where the troops were just mistreating prisoners, the whole waterboarding type thing, and then you had the rendition of people being brought out from those countries and, interrogated, being tortured in, some kind of, a place of back of beyond in somewhere in Eastern Europe, and these temporary prisons, and a whole espionage world of trying to get into these, terrorist cells. Very strange business.
Yeah, and what's interesting about the whole torture regime is that traditionally torture has always been used by governments to elicit false confessions and to discredit people through, torturing them into admitting to crimes that they didn't commit. And, in many ways, that's exactly what the Bush administration was trying to do leading up to the war in Iraq, was they were basically trying to torture prisoners to come up with a connection between Iraq and the 9/11 attacks. And, they were basically asking that question over and over again to try to get one guy to say, yes, Saddam Hussein and bin Laden met, and so they actually did find a guy, or they did get a guy to say the right thing, and Colin Powell used his testimony, which was done through waterboarding and torture, in the UN, his report to the UN. So, this is exactly what torture was meant to be used for, and that is to get false information. And it also is a form of, oppression and control, and it produces fear not only in the mind of the people you're fighting, but also in American people's mind, because they know that they could be tortured. If there's any question to whether or not you're an enemy combatant, guess what, buddy? It doesn't matter that you're American.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Guantanamo Bay thing is an interesting subject. And when Obama was campaigning for the presidency, he kind of said, if I become president, I'll close down, Guantanamo Bay. And he's been in office for close to 2 years now, or 2 years or so, and it's still open. It's still doing its kind of illegal business, if you will. It's still torturing people. It's still, getting these so-called terrorist prisoners and torturing. And I mean, the guy that, if you go in with the kind of official story of it, the guy that they kind of said was the kind of, along with bin Laden, was the sort of mastermind and the sort of the money behind the attacks, was this guy called Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. And he was the guy that they were trying to, didn't they? They were trying to get the trial in New York, and I think they'd literally interrogated and
they
tortured
waterboarded him.
This guy
187 times. 187 times.
So you're gonna tell someone anything that they want to hear, when you're being tortured that much, which
and
leads
the Bush administration. Just want to say the Bush administration knew that they were exactly what they were doing when they did this, because they understood that they would create a whole class of criminal that could not be tried and could not be let go. And therefore, that's why Guantanamo can't be closed, because we can't try them because we tortured them, and they would be, under any system of law, they would be acquitted because of how they were treated. Doesn't matter what they did.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like any law of men would have let these people free, but we can't now because we don't know what they're going to, what kind of revenge they'll enact on us,
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we've been talking for an hour or so, and we've barely mentioned the guy that the official story is attributed to, and that's Mr. Osama bin Laden. Yeah. So
well,
I think we should probably get into him for a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about the one piece of evidence that has basically pinned him to the 9/11 attacks, which is a tape where he's apparently bragging about the fact that he had planned these attacks to a friend. And it's not an official video, that like one of the ones that he released. It's basically like a candid, kind of surreptitiously recorded thing where he's on a couch and he looks fat. It doesn't look like the Bin Laden that we know from the many video messages that he's put out there.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how, and he's got this gold watch on, apparently something that he would never wear. So they call this the Fat Bin Laden video, and this is the one where, and it's funny too because nobody ever brings it up, so because I guess they know that it looks kind of stupid, and so you never see it on the news, but yet it's always assumed that we know that this guy did it, Bin Laden, and yet the FBI, they never had them on their website as a perpetrator of the attack because they claimed there was just no evidence of it, that he did it.
That's right, yeah. That's one of the strange things out of the whole thing, that on the FBI kind of site where it would list people that they're interested in talking to about certain crimes, to do with 9/11, and Bin Laden was sort of, he wasn't listed as like a suspect, and they had no interest in him as a suspect in the 9/11 thing, which was quite incredible, really. But I mean, the whole Bin Laden thing. I mean, obviously, as we're talking now, it's been a few months where he's supposedly been killed, and that leads to a whole other, ball of wax, if you will. But we won't probably get into that. We can probably do a separate show on the conspiracies and the discussion that have been about the death of Bin Laden. But if we're talking about the kind of the lifetime of Bin Laden, I mean, the guy, considering the guy was supposedly living in Afghanistan, he wasn't an Afghani, he was Saudi Arabian, and he was pretty much Saudi Arabian royalty. His family, the Bin Laden family were very rich and probably still are very rich and powerful. And even if you watch like the Fahrenheit 9/11 documentary movie that Michael Moore produced, he kind of shows that the Bin Ladens and the Bush family were good friends. Literally, not just send each other Christmas cards. So they go on vacation together. So that's a worrying connection, that that there is a connection between the Bin Laden and the Bush. I think there's a book. There was a book that was discussed. I think it might be called like the House of Blood or something. But it was a book detailing all the relationships between the Bushes.
House of Bush, House of Saud, House of Bush, House of Saud, I think.
Yeah.
But or something like that. Yeah, but the thing about Bin Laden is that he was part of this big family that is very friendly with the Bushes, and his brother was having breakfast with Bush Sr. when the attacks occurred. So I mean,
that's right.
Like,
yeah, I think
how's
it was
that
a guy called Band, and like the kind of nickname for this guy was like, they called him Bandar Bush because he was like just with the Bushes.
No, that's a different guy. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. Bandar, he's the guy from Saudi Arabia who is like they call him Bandar Bush. Yeah, I remember that. But yeah, and the fact that these are 19 people from I think a majority of them were from Saudi Arabia, and yet Saudi Arabia is not a suspect at all in this attack. I mean,
that's right. Yeah. You think
really
that you think that the country that that produced, you think that the host country, the home country of these people that produced these alleged terrorists would receive some sort of retribution about the attacks, but instead of going and bombing the hell out of Saudi Arabia and these terrorist families and stuff, they chose to just not go there at all and leave them alone and go to Afghanistan, and then Iraq, and now Libya, and the whole Middle East is just a complete mess. I mean, it was untidy to say the least before 9/11, but since 9/11 it's a real hornet's nest, and every day on the news or on the internet or in the newspapers, you read about unrest in the Middle East and the regime change, something the people rising up, and it's Egypt, and there's a lot of things have been happening certainly in recent years, not immediately after 9/11, but certainly in recent years there has been a lot of population uprising, and it all kind of ties into 9/11 and the whole aftermath, and and there doesn't look like there's going to be any end to all the unrest there. I would probably say for sure, probably in both our lifetimes, I can't see the Middle East and indeed Israel and Palestine kind of ever being resolved. Probably as long as we're alive.
I mean, look what's happened though. I mean, it's the perfect storm for people who deal in natural resources like oil. We've every war that we launch over there increases the price. It makes the oil, takes oil off the market and then increases its price exponentially. So, right when the Iraq War occurred, over the years, gas just went up and up and up and up because they basically took out all that oil from the market and sat on it. And now, it'll come back online pretty soon, but at the new high price. It's not like they're going to bring the prices down, significantly again. So it's a perfect way to, because let's face it, the way it was set up, and I think they realized this, the way the Middle East was set up by having all these dictators, was that we were getting oil too cheap. And so they wanted to make the oil more expensive. So the best way to do that is to let Exxon produce it instead of these dictators. So now there's this whole plan, and part of the empire, it's part of the plan for the empire, to take over the whole area of the Middle East, finally, and get that firmly under the control of, I think America is trying to beat out China, in this respect, because they know that the future of the energy, is all there,
Yeah, that certainly is the most powerful kind of aspect of the whole thing as a whole. Certainly in this day and age, and as the world goes on, that the most luxurious item, the thing that people can't do without is energy, whether it's gas for your car, water to drink and to use as you will. All energy resources are obviously vitally important, and the people that control them are going to have all the cards in their hand.
Yeah, and that's why Iran back in the day was overthrown, because the country itself was going to nationalize the oil fields and make, do it in a way that, the way Chavez, that's why they hate Chavez in Venezuela, because he has made it, he's nationalized the oil fields, so it's not like private entities anymore, it's like state-run, a lot of the money that is generated ends up going to the people instead of just like a few executives. But that's not the model that, the people that are controlling this country are interested in. They want a model where there's, everybody's there are these few people running it, and they have all the money, and they're able to jack the price up and fuck, the normal person. And they are. Look at the way I can't imagine what they are in England, but the price of the gas, ever since Bush came into office, it's it's gone up maybe 4 times, that's not just a coincidence.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the price of gas is where you are now, but I remember being on vacation in America in around about 1996 or 97, and we had a hire car, and we stopped at the gas station and get some gas, and it was like $1.20. I don't know what it is
exactly.
now.
It was like
I don't know what it is over there now. Yeah.
Right now it's almost $4, maybe a little more.
Yeah. We pay
between $4 and $4.50.
We pay a lot for our gas over here, because they add VAT onto it. So I mean, you guys think you pay a lot for gas. I promise you, we probably pay. I'd probably say we probably pay twice as much for gas over here. We are. I don't know what the money conversion works out to be, but if you were to come over here and you know, and have a car and fill up, you would be amazed at the price that they charge. And you know, people. I mean, there've been protests over here where you have truckers and people that depend, you know, their livings on using fuel, and they've blockaded roads and things. But these protests last for a day or so, and then they're forgotten, and people just put their hands in their pockets and pay the price that, you know, that BP and Esso and Texaco and all these companies, you know, all these gas stations charge, and that's just the way it is. But I just want to track back to the whole Bin Laden thing. Certainly the videos that are, I mean, obviously Bin Laden is dead now, or so we're told, but when Bin Laden was alive, every sort of, you know, once or twice a year you'd have like a video recording, you know, kind of released to the media, and it was always, you know, kind of a little bit dark, and it would be done on like a home, you know, kind of movie camcorder, and it would be sent to the kind of main Arabic TV network, which was, you know, which is well, still is Al Jazeera, and then that would be sort of you know, dispatched to all the other sort of foreign news agencies. And you'd see these different video recordings, and like you said before, there'd be some where Bin Laden would have like jewellery on, which is kind of forbidden, I believe, in the whole kind of Muslim culture about wearing jewellery and things. And there'd be ones where he'd appear to have gained like, you know, 40 pounds or something. There'd be ones where his beard would be, you know, quite grey, and there'd be other ones where it'd be quite dark. And you know, it led to a lot of theories about, you know, kind of doubles being used, you know, impersonators. You know, is it the real guy? And if you kind of research Bin Laden, you know, on the internet, it seems that around the time of 9/11, he was actually having health issues himself. There's reports of him having, you know, kind of being on like kidney dialysis equipment, in hospitals, and, you know, having liver failure. I mean, if this guy's having like liver failure or kidney failure, you know, and he needs round the clock treatment, and he certainly isn't living in a cave somewhere. He's gonna, you know, he's with his money and power, he's going to want the best, you know, private medical treatment. And there are reports that, you know, he was kind of proclaimed dead, you know, even before 9/11 happened. And I believe, I've seen this on a documentary, that the first kind of video statement that Bin Laden did, which I think was probably 4 or 5 days after 9/11, he actually denied any involvement, and just said, you know, I've not carried this out. It's you know, I've not carried this out myself. It's carried out by, you know, people with their own, you know, motives. And then gradually over the next few months, you'd see, you know, him still not sort of taking credit for the act, but, you know, kind of, you know, laughing in America's face by saying, you know, you've you know, the chickens have come home to roost. You know, you've messed with us for a while, and now you're having all these problems. But yeah, these videos were some of them were very misleading. Some would be sort of a little bit incoherent and a bit rambling, and he'd be talking about other things. I mean, obviously.
How about when he came on almost like to help Bush? He basically came on and endorsed Kerry right like the night before the election. Remember that?
Yeah, that was another strange one.
I mean, it was perfect. It was the perfect gift to George W. Bush. I mean, it was great.
I mean, this Bin Laden guy, you know, he's got a heck of a history. I mean, if you watch some of these documentaries, and there's probably documents around the internet that you can read. I think it's pretty much been shown that Bin Laden was, you know, he was like a CIA asset, you know, in the 80s. You know, he was working for the CIA, you know, and apparently his code name.
He worked directly.
Yeah, code name was Tim Osman, which is like the least the least sounding Arabic name you could probably pick. But he was working, for the CIA in their sort of dealings in Afghanistan when like the Soviets were there, when the Afghans were, and it's strange to think of it. But, at one time. At one time in history, like the US were kind of friends with these guys. Now, whether they used these guys as kind of like a patsy, like Oswald, or whether these guys just got fed up with the American influence and to use a wrestling term, turned heel on them, is another thing. But certainly he was an intelligent asset for a long time, and at one time he was allies. They were allies with the US, and
he helped drive out the Soviets with the US back. So he was part of the
right.
We have a caller. I'll get the line. See if you have a question. Area code 631. What's up?
Hey, how you doing? I'm here in New York City, and I was here. I grew up here, and I was here when 2001 happened. And a lot of people thought that I was nuts. So when I told them, when it happened, I already, knew it was up. The way the government was from childhood. And in America, it sounds like you have a London person on the phone, or English? Or?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And over here, I have 2 aunts in London. A lot of people around the world. But America is just the land of like the brainless, and a lot of Americans have a problem, talking about that. When I went to Europe and other places, they're open about it. And what we've been noticing, a few of us that think freely, is they have been conditioning the public for this anniversary of fear and the decade of ignorance. The earthquake, which, if a free-thinking mind, they can manipulate that. Even hurricanes. And when I spoke with some people, I said, oh, well, that sounds like your theory. And then all of a sudden on the Discovery Channel, a show called Engineering Hurricanes comes up. The earthquake was labeled a terrorist. You had people getting interviewed in Manhattan talk about, oh, it reminded me of 9/11. So that, also the earthquake hitting D.C., Pennsylvania, New York. So that's a subliminal that's sitting in the minds of people, because those are the 3 places where the planes crashed. Two in New York, one in Pennsylvania. So what I've seen over the past couple of decades is like an engineering, a psychological engineering. And when I was growing up, a young kid in the 70s and the 80s, everything seemed cool. Now when I look back, I see the conditioning. And this is really hard for people to accept. Even in all countries, London, other countries, they're not really countries. They're criminal enterprises.
Yeah,
and
at this point.
Yeah, I noticed in Holland and in London, and I think you're considered a subject instead of a citizen. So subject, without a doubt, it's a better system as far as not screwing over the citizen or the other person, because you get free health care. You get things over there that people should get over here that they just don't get, because it seems like I call it the American experiment, because it's like we pay for everything, yet we're still tightly enslaved. And the psychological, Dad, I didn't want to take up too much.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Well, the psychological enslavement of people, because I wouldn't want to call it homeschool, but I teach teens and adults free when I can, because I still have to work and, provide for myself. But the most important thing I tell people that I can teach them is how to detect a lie. And, I keep racism out of it, even though we know it does exist, because, I'm a person of color. But I try to let people know that, you're going to find good people in all shades and from all countries. Another thing with Americans is, that old trope. A person that speaks 2 languages is bilingual. A person that speaks 3 languages is trilingual. A person that speaks 1 language is American. And they don't want to learn. If anything, you should learn our language. And difference becomes scary. I mean, I've traveled to a lot of states around America, and it is frightening. It's really frightening when I look at the subservience of people. It's actually dangerous, because if you don't know how to blend in, man, you know, kind of reminds me of what, I don't know if the story is true, about Voltaire from France, and he was surrounded by a bunch of Englishmen, and they were going to, you know, kill him, and he goes, look, man, you know, look, come on, it's bad enough I wasn't born an Englishman. And they ended up, like, you know, he's saying they, you know, carried him home, hooked up their parade, you know, this and that. So understanding where people's minds are is extremely important, because it just shows you how easily the basic populace can be manipulated. And that's by a mere free thinker. Imagine a government with tools like media, radio, you know, schools, institutions, you know, the college degrees. I mean, that's basically a degree of performance. You know, you get it, and a lot of college grads, you know, I go to college and speak to people, they're in denial of that. I said, look, if you're a doctor or something, thank you. You panic, you put people back together. But as far as, you know, as far as somebody healing themselves, if somebody comes in there sick, it's either one of two things: something you ate or something you came in contact with, environmental poisons or eating a poison or something. And that, you can't really tell me that much about that. Two words I notice anybody would agree, or a lot of people have a hard problem saying is, I don't know, and I was wrong. So yeah, you'll almost never hear that from politicians or anybody with a college degree. I don't know, or I was wrong. Because it takes away the fake authority that they've been given. You know, which is the degree. I look for shows, man. I cannot find stuff. So when I saw this label, you know, occult knowledge, you know, talking about 9/11, a lot of people here, there's a few guys, you know, one guy, I don't know if he's going to go on tonight, but he's from California, and he was talking about the manipulation. Like today in America, the movie that comes out today, Contagion. A fear-based. That isn't orchestrated, man. And the funniest thing is, last night on the television, they had,
that's
you know,
a good one.
Thanks, man. We scan it, you know, to see what the programming is for the populace. And they had Ancient Aliens. They were talking all about comets and alien seeding disease, the plagues, all of that. Go to the other channel, Batman. Where it was the one with Christian Bale, the first one, where what was the plot? They wanted to poison the water supply. So more, and then today, this movie, and I'm like, the Daily News in Manhattan, it says on it, 3 big lines. The letters are over 3 inches big, 9/11 terror attack. I mean, it's just scary. Just look at it, like, what the hell's going on? They are, I mean, it's conditioning. The Patriots are just mentally stifling. Everybody was watching Obama yesterday, like the majority. I walked out. I said, you know, I'm going to the bookstore, man. You know, it was just like, you know, you're going to watch this puppet on TV lie to you. You know, I needed to get clips of when he was running and saying, if I get elected, I will end the war in Iraq, and put them side by side with the clip recently of, you know, sometimes wars necessary and this and that, just prepping for Libya. I came to the conclusion that the intelligent people that can see through it, that's why they don't produce that intelligence. Because it's a lot easier, and this is a fact, it's a lot easier to fool an intelligent person than it is a dumb person. So, you know, a dumb person, well, and not to be mean and call them dumb, but a simple-minded person will look at something and say, wait a minute, that can't be good. But we'll say, oh, it's technology, blah, 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 he's just behind the times, he's in the country, this and that, and then you find out years later, he goes to cancer or some shit. Right. And then the guy that was growing his food, living naturally, not sitting, you know, watching TV an hour a day, even an hour a day, we got to remember, this is a lighted box that flashes colors. And that's the same tool that hypnotists use.
Yeah, it's
David
a hypnotizing machine.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. David Icke, I mean, he said it best. The hypnotist in the corner of the room. And I might not agree with everything he says or other people say, and that's another thing within our own ego that kind of holds us back, is to say, well, you know, I don't really like his opinion on this. Cool. Then don't worry about that. Take what's good, pack off the unessential. Because some of the stuff he's saying, shit, the Ku Klux Klan in America says stuff that's relevant. I mean, they'd hang me if I was in a certain area, but they're right when they say the government is doing this and that, you know, and what it is they're seeing it first because, of course, they've had the most freedom. You know, so once it started getting taken from them, you know, when somebody says, oh, well, you know, America's not what it was, I'm like, yeah, what? How far you want to go back to when I was in chains or some shit? You know, what? You're going back to India when, you know, British is raping through there, you know? And that's the thing, to separate and divide us, because you get black guys, Indian guys, Spanish guys, they get on that pro shit, and I'm like, nah, man, that's not right. I'm like, there are good white people, there are good brown people, there's good in every type of person out there, and this is the ultimate divide and conquer thing, because if it's not color, you might fall into the patriotism. Oh, well, you know, he's from Europe, or he's like, wait a minute, man, who cares where he's from? Like, he's a free-thinking individual and embrace that person. You know, and most of the time I see people, and, you know, they say good stuff, and next thing you know, they come out from under the rock. Oh, well, you know, yeah, that's just what Jesus said. I'm like, yeah, because you knew him, right? But, yeah, I just wanted to, you know, throw in my 2 cents, you know, help out or whatever. You know, I see you guys have the you know, just the name and the whole, you know, to put something up like that, you know, because I went through a few shows and I was just like, maybe 5 minutes, and I realized a lot of people on Blog Talk, because I'm thinking of starting a show, so I'm going through and checking stuff, because I don't want to just jump in, just throw money away, you know.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for calling.
Man. And,
Well,
no, you know,
problem.
we're on more regularly, so you should just you know, call in again when you can, man.
Yeah, I'll call in, and, you know, I'll come in the chat room and talk in the chat room, you know, so I can hear, you know, everybody's, you know, view and stuff like that. But thank you for letting me voice my opinion, man.
All right, cool, man. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, take care, man. Bye.
Thanks.
All right. So, hey, listen, Mark Rent, I wanted to get into some of the central questions around 9/11 and have you comment on them. And this comes from an article in TVNewsLive.com.org.
Okay.
And basically, these are sort of like the main questions that people who look into this ask. And let's just start with, why do we still believe the tale of the 19 hijackers when so many of the accused hijackers showed up alive within days? And why do we still believe the fable of the 19 hijackers when the FBI admitted they are not sure about either the identity of the hijackers or if they were any hijackers at all? So,
exactly.
Go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that's another thing that gets brought up from time to time about, you know, the fact that they named all these hijackers, and like within days, you know, the people behind these names were like, well, you know, they'd appear on TV in Afghanistan or Saudi Arabia, and they'd say, well, that's not me, you know, I wasn't a hijacker because I'm here now. So, you know, are they faking passports? Are they doctoring passports? Are they, you know, picking names out of a bag? You know, that they credited a lot of people with being, you know, part of the hijack crew, and these people were like, you know, turning up alive and saying, well, you know, it wasn't me. You know, I'm still here, so I don't know who it is that did it, or even if people, you know, were doing it. But yeah, I think the official line is that they were trying to say that the reason why was because, you know, the passports were stolen or something. And the whole passport thing leads to another interesting part of the whole 9/11 thing, is that apparently like an FBI agent or a cop, you know, found a passport, you know, on the sidewalk, you know, by the Twin Towers, that had kind of, you know, miraculously, you know, not been burnt and destroyed in the plane crash, and it was just happened to been sort of just lying, on the sidewalk, almost perfectly preserved, where everything else had been burnt to Kingdom Come, and this passport, which was, if you believe this story, then all of a sudden you would have to say that someone has obviously, planted the passport there. But the whole thing about a passport surviving, a paper passport surviving out of a fireball is ludicrous.
Yeah, that in itself was really. Another question. Why did George W. Bush's Secret Service detail not rush the president to safety when it was evident that the nation was under attack? If the nation was under attack and they did not know the scope of the attack and the president's location was known, how did they not worry about being attacked in Florida? Why did they act as if they knew that there was no threat? And why, when our nation was under attack, did the president not rush into action? If you say he was concerned about upsetting the children, you are the ultimate apologist. He could have told them that his mommy was on the phone and he had to see what she wanted. Our country was supposed to be being attacked, and he waited 20 minutes before he moved. This is the smoking gun of smoking guns.
Yeah, that's right. If you watch the footage of Bush, in that school, kind of an aide comes in and sort of, whispers in his ear, and Bush has sort of a puzzled look on his face and continues to sort of sit in a classroom, sort of a vacant look on his face. And if you watch the actual video footage, he's holding this book, and the book is actually upside down, so he's supposedly reading this book upside down, which is quite comical. And they're trying to say that he didn't like bolt out the door because it would alarm the children. I'm sure they could have done it in a different way. They could have, just instead of having a big kind of hustle scene, have a couple of people walk up to him, mention in his ear, and then maybe beckon the teacher over and explain that they that something's important's come up and they have to leave, and then this could all be done in less than a minute. But of course he sat there and just almost waited for the next step in development, and it kind of in a way it leaves a sort of a smoking gun to Bush's possible knowledge, or even shudder to say sort of participation, whether meant or not in the whole day.
Well, related to that also was the fact that they didn't know anything was happening, right? But yet there was a state of emergency that was declared when Bush was in Florida by his brother, who was the governor at the time. That's kind of odd. They didn't usually just declare a state of emergency just because the president has come, but yet he was already under, waiting for some shit to happen, as though they kind of had some idea that something was happening. Another question is, who placed all of those put options on the airlines just prior to the event, as if they knew that stock prices on those specific airlines would lose a huge amount of value? And this is true. Basically, there were a lot of people who, basically bet on the fact that certain airlines would, dramatically tumble in their share price, and they made, millions of dollars just on that sort of speculation, and that nobody really looked into that.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of people, really cleaned up out of the whole thing, and obviously in the whole kind of financial business and the stock exchange business, insider trading is like, you'll lose your license. You in some instances you'll end up in jail for having insider trading knowledge. But people were, doing these put options and making money on these airlines, losing their share value after these incidents, and people, certain people, and these people were probably in on aspects of it. Maybe they were relatives of these higher up people, and they kind of made these sort of bets, if you will, and they made money out of a horrible tragedy. And I hope they can look at themselves in the mirror in the morning and realise that.
Yeah, right. Here's another question. Why was there molten metal flowing under the wreckage of the World Trade Center for months? No jet fuel can melt metal, and nothing explainable could melt that much metal and keep it hot enough to remain molten for a month. So basically the idea is that there had to have been, because that's exactly what happens when you have a controlled demolition involving, these steel rods or iron rods or whatever the metal was that was supporting the World Trade Center. You create these pools of molten metal that stay burning for a very long time. And all the metal too was interestingly collected up at the time right after the attack and sent over to China to be melted down. And the people that have gotten pieces of that metal and tested it, and it has tested positive for thermite, which basically is the after. It's what is left by a controlled demolition when you have metal that is involved in that. So I mean, there's a lot of evidence pointing to another piece of that evidence pointing to that specific thing was that the head of security of the World Trade Center was a cousin, I believe, or was a company headed by Bush's cousin. Have you heard that part?
Yeah. Was it Neil Bush or?
Yeah, Neil Bush. I think it was. I'm not sure which Bush, but there was a Bush that was involved with the security of the building. So there was the opportunity to plant explosives, at an earlier time, and then detonate it. And then connected to that story is what was also suppressed by the 9/11 Commission report was the fact that the people that were there in the last moments before the buildings collapsed reported to hear a series of explosions underneath the building, and then the buildings came down, and those reports were just completely ignored by the 9/11 report. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I think that there's reports that members of the FDNY, the firemen that were in the building, there's video evidence of them saying, that they thought bombs were going off. It sounded like bombs are going off, and the floors are coming down like it was a demolition, which leads further credence to the possibility that there were explosives in the towers.
Yeah, and it was Marvin Bush pointing out by...
Marvin Bush, yeah.
Yeah, it was pointed out by somebody in the chat, because basically, you have all the elements there. It was just the perfect thing. And then you also had Larry Silverstein, who owned the building, who my understanding was that he was told that the building basically had to be retrofitted because it had asbestos issues.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And it was going to cost him...
Too much money,
double. Yeah, I mean, so much money that it was not a good investment at that point. But then when the building, he did take a really hefty insurance policy out on the building and ended up getting twice its value back. So he really paid out well.
Yeah, instead of being paid out on one terrorist act for the two buildings, he got paid out. For two terrorist acts on two buildings, so he made out good financially out of the whole deal, and there's question marks around what knowledge he had of the day's events, certainly.
Yeah, and the poor guy, I mean, wherever he goes, he's hounded by 9/11 truthers asking him why he said, we had to pillage the building of the. It's hilarious.
That's right. Yeah.
These 9/11 truthers are great. I mean, because they even plague Bill Maher on his show. They're just like all over the place, just like shouting at people. When
I've even met a few of them when I've been to New York in recent years, and I've been down in I've been down Ground Zero, or I've been Union Square or something. And there's been 9/11 sort of truth people out, handing out leaflets and DVDs. They hand out like DVDs of like Loose Change and some of these documentaries and things, and they wear these T-shirts, and the guys are from all kind of walks of lives. There's some young guys, there's some middle-aged guys, and I've talked to them on a couple of occasions, and sort of talked about the London 7/7 attacks, and the New York stuff, and these guys aren't just so-called sort of crazy conspiracy theorists. They've got a lot of points, and I'm sure there'll be some sort of well, not demonstration, but there'll be some sort of visual protest probably this week in New York.
I'm sure there will be, yeah.
A few marches and things like that.
And what's interesting about the 9/11 truth movement, and but I'm sure this happens in every movement, but there is a portion of the movement that inevitably gets co-opted by the powers that want to cover up the incident. So you'll have people that'll be a part of the movement ostensibly, but what they'll do is they'll take, they'll make these outlandish claims in conjunction with, saying that 9/11 happened. Like they'll be like, and I feel like Alex Jones might be part of this, where it's like they go almost over the deep end and start saying weird stuff that all the planes were remote control, or that there was this I don't know.
There is a lot of crazy stuff. Yeah, some people say
and it's almost like they do that, hologram, and they do that with, every conspiracy theory is that, like, they'll have a group that almost poses as one of the truthers, and will even do acts of, like, violence to discredit the movement, or will make outlandish claims, and go on TV as these, truthers, and then people look at that and they're like, oh, well, these guys are crazy, and so it helps to discredit the movement. The best way to cover it up
there's probably people in these groups that that work for the government, and they're kind of they're there to disinfo agents.
Disinformation.
Yeah, and a couple other things that are interesting to note about 9/11. People working in the towers that were Jewish or Israeli. Apparently they were getting text messages telling them to get out. That's another common thing that seems to be known about the 9/11 thing. I'm not sure whether you're aware of that.
Wait, I'm sorry, I missed that. You went out there for a second. What did you say?
People, Jewish Israeli people that were working in the Twin Towers that morning, they were getting like text messages and stuff, early in that morning, before the work day started, saying, don't go into work today, don't go into work this morning, and kind of just leaving it as that, and that's led to a lot of sort of theories on the internet of like Israeli type influence on 9/11, and whether like Mossad were behind it, or rogue agents, or and there's it's like with the internet and a lot of things. There's always a lot of people ranting and raving about Israel and Zionists and all this type of thing, and trying to apportion blame on other groups, and that's another part of the 9/11 thing. Another interesting part that you probably be aware of, around about 6, 7, 8 months before 9/11, there was a television program that was made. I think it was made by the producer of the X-Files, and sort of the basis of this program was like showing like a 747, like just plow into the Twin Towers.
Yeah.
I think it was called The Lone. I think the TV show was called The Lone Gunman, or something like that. It was made by the people behind the X-Files. So then people are sort of pointing to that and saying, people, this TV show went out on national TV, and it's kind of preparing people psychologically, for future attacks. And of course, not long after the program aired, it actually happened for real rather than in a a TV program.
Indeed. And there's some other things that we should also look at here. Well, we talked about the photos from bus cameras that were confiscated from the Pentagon that have never been released. We talked about why the airplane that crashed in Shanksville apparently vaporized so that nothing remained. No bodies, no luggage, no metal, nothing. For the first time in aviation history. But what did survive was a handwritten note from a hijacker was apparently found. So that's just adding so many things, so many loose ends to this story here. And also, finally, when this is actually a big thing. Why were the NORAD rules changed for the first time several weeks prior to 9/11, taking responsibility? It's basically they took the responsibility and authority for shooting down hijacked planes away from NORAD military command for the first time and gave it to a civilian, Rumsfeld, and then returned it to NORAD the day after 9/11. And also at that time, they were planning drills of the actual event that was planes crashing into the building. They were doing a drill, or at least they had a drill planned for the exact same day that 9/11 happened, so that when they finally, when it was happening, the people that were involved in trying to deal with it kept asking the question, is this real world or is this drill? Because they didn't understand. They couldn't, it provided the necessary distraction.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that provided distraction or confusion or one or both of those things. You'd see these video footage or audio footage of people asking questions over the airwaves. Is this real world or part of the part of this kind of war games drill that was going on? And the kind of the official sort of explanation is that it did confuse people. People didn't really know how to react. They didn't know whether it was part of the drill or whether it was a real situation, and that might have thrown a spanner in the works. Who knows? But I think there was a code name for this drill. I think was it something like Vigilant Guardian or Global Guardian? It was one of these sort of code names. But there's certainly a lot of confusion and about the problems in the air that day, about the scrambling of the jets, and they headed off in the wrong direction. They headed off towards the coast or something rather than inland, and they arrived too late, and there was some sort of there's been debates about a shoot down by Cheney or Rumsfeld, sort of basically if the planes were in sight and they had the opportunity to shoot them down and chose not to. That plane headed into the Pentagon. There's a lot of confusion and questions certainly regarding what was happening in the air that day. They didn't know which planes were hijacked. They didn't know which planes to follow. They didn't know which way to go. And
well, that's another thing about the flights themselves that were off course for several, almost over an hour, and that whenever that would normally happen, they would be greeted with fighter jets, and that somehow that system got short-circuited, and there was no, there was just like no one noticed that these planes were totally off their course, and that in itself was like, what's going on, How did that happen,
Yeah, I think there was an incident that might have been covered in the Fahrenheit 9/11 documentary where they were talking about a plane going off course, and it was the plane of the golfer called Payne Stewart. I'm not sure whether you're aware of this, and his plane was going off course, and they had like fighter jets, alongside the plane, within minutes, and yet they couldn't seem to they couldn't seem to organise anything on 9/11 with these more important things to do. They couldn't seem to sort that out, and whether there was a gremlin in the works, people not wanting these things to be stopped. Who knows? That might be another thing entirely.
Yeah, and that in itself, I mean, it just seems so odd to me when you have all these planes that are unaccounted for, or not in their flight plan, and you're just gonna. To me, it would just seem so odd that they were allowed to remain in the air at all. But that's just just yet another thing to add on to this craziness. Now, just as an overall point, a lot of people say, that's really monstrous to think that the Bush administration would be willing to kill Americans to accomplish some kind of goal, foreign policy or whatever. But you think about what they did in Iraq for no reason. I mean, they basically killed over 2 million people in Iraq. For what? For some oil, some money? So these guys don't give a fuck. So why would they care about killing a few more thousand here in America that they don't, to me it just seems like odd that people would even question that they were capable of it. It was clear that they were capable of basically anything once they went into Iraq for no reason. It was just, to me, it was like, these guys will do fucking anything. And so that's why I don't necessarily believe in the 9/11 conspiracy. I don't know. All I know is that the story doesn't make sense, and these guys are ruthless fuckers. So I don't put it past them.
Yeah, that's right. You don't put it past them. I mean, we'll never be in a position where we're that high up in authority that we can know what goes on through the people in control's heads. But the average Joe in the street has got a different mindset to these people. I mean, we would never comprehend of doing such a deed, but the people in power, and power is just a powerful thing once you've got hold of it, and you can control with a use of a pen and signing a document, or making a phone call, pressing a button, that you can have control over people's lives and deaths. This small kind of group of people that are in it for various means to make a ton of money and to make their friends happy and the corporations happy and the war machine happy. It's not beyond, really, if you think about it, it's not beyond comprehension to think that either they knew it was coming, or they kind of created a way where it would happen and they wouldn't really get kind of fingered for the crime. Maybe that's what's happened. It's this thing's going to be ongoing. It's like we'll probably never know the real story, because you rarely ever know the real story behind major world events. Just like it's almost 50 years after the Kennedy assassination, and there's no real definitive explanation or story of what actually went on. And I've got a feeling that 9/11 is going to be one of those things that's going to be ongoing, and from generation to generation people are going to discuss and debate and talk about and argue about what happened, and there's probably never going to be a conclusive answer to all that's going on.
Well, what I think should be done is somebody should actually just do a movie, do a movie of the worst case scenario, and basically that's the worst case scenario being that the government actively planned it. And what would be wrong with just saying, okay, this is a fictional history piece about how, if the government did do it, how they could have done it. And then you do the whole movie like that, and then you do maybe another movie where it's well, here's another way it could happen. Maybe they just let it happen. I don't know. I'm just saying, would they ever allow a movie like such a thing to?
Yeah, that movie would be tough to get made, I would think, and it'd have to be some sort of independent type thing, like Loose Change and sort of end up on YouTube and have, millions and millions of views. I mean, if people, are interested in the 9/11 thing, there's a multitude of documentaries and videos that are available on the internet and DVD. I mean, probably the biggest one, that sort of mainstream one that came out was Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11, which was fairly decent overview of a lot of the stuff that went on, certainly before 9/11. And
but it's not. Hold on, we have about 10 seconds. I just want to say we have 10 seconds left on the live feed. We will continue to talk on the download, so check us out on the download. There's only about, we'll talk about 15 more minutes. And go ahead, because finish what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Moore's got his critics of being, kind of a left liberal, and he was once a small time, sort of movie maker, and now he's got a lot of money and he can do this and this, that, well, whatever. He's got his critics, but I think Fahrenheit 9/11 is a pretty decent product, and it gives quite a good overview of sort of what went on, certainly beforehand, and it does, to a certain extent, apportion blame, and a lot of the movie is more kind of poking fun at Bush, at being sort of a hit cowboy in Dumb, and avoiding the draft and this, that, and the other. And but I enjoyed the film, and that came out before the Bush presidential era, and it was amazing to see after a bit. I remember going to the movie, to the cinema, and watching it and thinking, after this movie, there's no way that the American public are going to elect Bush, for a second term. And what happened? He got in again, and I was scratching my head to wonder how that happened.
Well, it was Bin Laden, man. Bin Laden, endorsed Kerry the night before the election, but we talked about that. But in general, I mean, Fahrenheit 9/11 wasn't really a part of the 9/11 conspiracy genre. I mean, because I don't think Michael Moore believes that 9/11 was an inside job,
Yeah, I don't think
that movie was more just like the Iraq War more than anything else. But
I don't think he probably believes it was an inside job. I think he just thinks that it was, there was a certain amount of negligence that led to the attacks, and is kind of saying in a way that if the people in intelligence and people in government had done their jobs properly, then that would have prevented the attacks taking place in the first place. Other than obviously the Fahrenheit 9/11 documentary, the most famous 9/11 movie, certainly on the conspiracy part of things, is Loose Change, which I think they've done about 3 different versions of. They've gradually, updated each version with, new evidence as it becomes available, and new footage and new interviews, and all 3 if you've got any interest, in investigating the 9/11 thing, all 3 films, in my opinion, are well worth watching.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a good thing. And another thing about just Michael Moore is that in that movie there was the fact about how the Saudi nationals that were flown out when there was, all the planes were grounded, they were allowed, including members of the Bin Laden family, were allowed to leave the country on chartered flights. So that was in Fahrenheit 9/11, which, is a big thing in the 9/11 conspiracy movement.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we'll just I think wrap it up there. I want to thank everybody for listening to this extended 9/11 show, but I guess it makes sense. It was 10 years since it happened. And thank you, Mark Wren. Thanks for the good insight there, and hopefully, we'll revisit this if something new comes up, and we'll always talk about it. And also, I want to talk about 7/7 when that date comes around. So we will do that too.
Yeah, we certainly can. Yeah.
Or we don't have to wait for it. We can probably just do a show on that too. Just because it's related. But there's all these different things that have happened. And they continue, and we have now a new threat that is, basically threatening us right now. It's all part of the scare machine. And,
nothing will happen, folks. It's just, it's all.
Well, actually, it will. I mean, you never know. That's.
Well, if I was a betting man, I'd say that nothing will happen. But they're talking about, putting out these alerts and stopping cars and checking tunnels and things. I don't think anything will happen. It's just to get people, aware that it is the 10th anniversary of it and make a whole big spectacle of it. I mean, I don't remember them making as much a deal. Like in the last few years seem to have passed, almost without much coverage of the anniversary. But obviously, a 10-year anniversary is more significant than maybe a number 7 or an 8. So it's going to be interesting to see the tributes and what actually happens this weekend in New York and in Washington. Just hope everyone stays safe.
Okay, well, yeah, me too. All right, well, thanks, man, and thanks for listening, and we will be back again soon talking more of the unexplained.
Peace.
And peace, man. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, this is Maury Moreland Morrison, here to tell you Geico has more than just great savings. Much more. Yes, while Geico could help you rack up more moolah faster than you can say metamorphosis, they've also been the fastest growing auto insurer for more than 10 years. That's more like it. Furthermore, Geico has fast and friendly claim service. That might seem like an oxymoron, but more reason to say no other auto insurer has more than Geico. Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
This is Best Show Gems, the best of the best show. It's going to be huge. My name is Tom Sharpling. I'm the host of the Best Show on WFMU, and I guess I'm the host of Best Show Gems also. As I said earlier, Best Show Gems, it's a sampling of what we do during the full 3-hour extravaganza that is the Best Show on WFMU. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this. Or actually, if you're working out, lean up and get excited and get ready to enjoy another installment of Best Show Gems. FMU, you're on the air.
It's hilarious. No, if it is true.
What's that?
What are you talking about?
Oh, the idea of writing something on a slip?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the guy didn't know it.
Yeah. Well, no, you do it and you just leave the bank and somebody you don't even know, it happens to them.
I love it.
Well, I don't love it. That's horrible.
It's hilarious. It's great. It's hilarious.
Well, okay. It's funny in theory, but it's not funny in real life.
It's funny, period. Hey, pretty cool show you got going.
Oh, thanks a lot. Who's this?
W. Berg.
Thanks, Terrence.
Yeah. I've been checking out your show for a few months. I kind of lost interest a few weeks ago or so. But I saw you got mentioned in the old AV Club.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That was exciting.
Yeah, so I thought I'd give you another shot.
Oh, so you lost interest.
Yeah.
But that's making you give it another shot.
Yeah, kind of forgot about it. You got some comedy CDs or something?
Yes. Yeah, we do.
Probably head over to BitTorrent and grab those bad boys.
Oh, no, thanks. You're just going to BitTorrent them?
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Fine. Hey, I signed up for your tweets.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, not bad, man, not bad. You got how many followers?
5,500.
Oh, decent.
Oh, it is? I mean, are you on Twitter?
Oh, yeah.
What are you pushing follower-wise?
I got 7,200.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It's very cool.
Uh-huh.
Hang on. I was closing up my store.
Mm-hmm. Your store?
Yeah.
You have a store?
Yeah.
Where's your store?
Phillyburg.
What's that?
Phillyburg.
What? I cannot understand.
Williamsburg.
Williamsburg. Were you saying Billyburg?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. You have a store in Williamsburg.
Yeah.
What is the store?
Silver Plateau.
What's that?
Silver Plateau.
I don't know what that is.
Come on. You've seen our store, right?
I don't think so.
Got that big mural on the side of the Golden Girls with Hot Pockets with Fred Perry and David Hasselhoff.
The Golden Girls?
Yeah.
I think I've passed that, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's what the store's named after. You know, it's the first couple letters of each of the characters' names. Dorothy, Rose, Blanche, and Sophia.
And say it slowly, it's...
Doroblazo.
Doroblazo.
Yeah.
Because it's who? Dorothy?
Rose. Blanche. And Sophia.
Oh, Doroblazo. Okay.
Yeah.
Doroblazo.
That's great. The show was so awesome. Old ladies talking about things only young people talk about.
Yeah.
So stupid. It's great.
Yeah. You like, is it, yeah, you know, it's not my kind of thing. I thought it was a little...
No. Well, I didn't know it. Didn't know it. Fun.
What's that, the Golden Girls?
Yeah, well, it's great.
Uh-huh.
So you never been in the store?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's a great store, yeah.
What is the store all about?
Well, we carry five items.
Mm-hmm. Like what?
Oh, we have five items.
What are the items?
We have a sculpture of a flea stack playing air hockey that my friend Danielle made.
Okay.
And we have a painting of He-Man making love to Rainbow Bright that my friend Gregor did.
Okay.
And we have this really awful book of poems about fucking Tanya Harding that I wrote. It's so bad. And we also have the sweater I took from my stepdad. This looks like it's straight out of Bill Cosby's closet. So square.
Like a
great.
Cosby sweater.
Yeah, so stupid. We also got this bomb.
Yeah.
That my girlfriend Shannon made out of Harden's Fun Dip. Remember Fun Dip?
Yes, that was that weird candy powder stuff.
Yeah, you ate it with like a candy spoon too. So stupid, it's great.
So you have a bong made out of Fun Dip.
Yeah.
I mean, do people actually buy these things?
Well, not really. I mean, who cares? It's fun to have a store.
But don't you need to sell stuff to have a store?
Nah, don't worry about me. You know, we also sell fluffernutter sandwiches right up front.
Uh-huh.
So rad. We'll blast the Xanadu soundtrack. So bad, it's great.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, but this is, how long have you had this store?
It's been open about 9 months.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. You know what also we ride our bikes around the store. It's great.
Really?
Yeah. John Powell has a bike. It's so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We'll talk about dumb stuff. You know.
Like what?
Like, have you seen this video with the Painless supporters? They go to that book signing.
I did see that, yes.
Bunch of idiots.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
How about this video that's going around of these guys from the speed show back in, I think it was the early 90s? These guys are trying to get dates. So
what is that? It's a video of guys trying to
get a date. Yeah, like outtakes from some dating show.
Uh-huh.
It's all over the internet today.
And it's guys just like auditioning
like a
for
serious show. Serious show. Yeah. Like describing what they wanted in a date and stuff. Just pathetic. Just so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great.
Wait, hold on. You're saying everything is stupid.
Yeah.
But then you're saying it's awesome or it's great.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not following you, Terrence.
What do you mean? Well, how about this Scott Stapp Kid Rock sex video? You seen this thing?
I heard about it. I can't look at it.
Hilarious. Them and these two groupies. Yeah, you're a Christian, right? Hilarious.
Uh-huh.
Oh, the best one, though?
Yeah.
You gotta see this thing. It's been around for a while. It's like, it's top shelf. It's this newscaster, and she's at this kind of like grape stomping thing for like a wine expo. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they're on the platform or something, and she falls over, and she wipes out and knocks the wind out of herself.
Yeah.
And she's in just the worst agony. She can't breathe, and she's just like floundering around like a big fish. Oh my God, it's insane. It's so funny. It's great.
Well, that sounds terrible.
Oh no, it's hilarious.
Seeing somebody get hurt?
Oh, she was probably fine.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We do pranks, too.
You do prank?
Oh, yeah. Like, I pranked this old lady at this nursing home.
Uh-huh.
I got her on the phone. I was asking her about the new Lightning Bolt album.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, but an old lady would have no idea what that is.
No, she didn't know what I was talking about, but she was just talking about stuff. It was great. She had some kind of, like, dementia. Hilarious. So wrong. It was great.
That's not hilarious.
Oh, yeah. You know what else I did?
What?
It's called the Montel Williams Show.
Yeah.
As Joel Higgins.
Who's Joel Higgins?
Oh, come on.
I honestly don't know.
Such a telemunch.
Who's Joel Higgins?
He was the dad on Silver Spoon. So I called the Montel Show as him.
Yeah.
And I said that I was homeless, so like totally down and out, and I was also a convicted pedophile. And I wanted to go on the show as him. They figured it out at the last minute, but it made the papers great.
That you were not the guy from Silver Spoon.
No, it got in the papers first that it was real.
Uh-huh.
Great. Yeah, it was great.
And then what, did that guy speak out or something?
Oh yeah, I mean he was devastated.
Why would that be hilarious?
Hey man, you know, price of fame. Price of fame. These guys know what they're getting into.
The price of fame.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hey, speaking of, check this out. We totally pranked that guy Dwight Schultz last year.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, come on.
Who's Dwight Schultz?
You have a radio show. You have no cultural knowledge or awareness.
I don't know who is it.
He was Spaceman on the A-Team.
Oh, I'm sorry I didn't know the real name of Face Man on A-Team.
Well, you should.
Well, I didn't.
It's important stuff.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, he's upstate doing King Lear at some, like dinner theater.
Yeah.
And all the while he's doing his thing, the and Val and stuff, we're just going, Spaceman, Spaceman, Spaceman. Totally ruined it. It was great.
That sounds horrible.
No, it was great. Hey, speaking of celebs, who've gone down the tubes.
Uh-huh.
See Steve Guttenberg in this Energizer commercial?
No.
Massive fail.
What is the commercial?
It's just like a regular, Energizer. Talking about batteries and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Fail.
Why is that a fail?
I don't know. I just love it when that happens. These Hollywood hotshots, Hollywood don't want them no more. They gotta sing for stuff like that. It's hilarious.
Uh-huh.
Great.
I mean, he probably... I would not exactly call that a fail.
I met him once. Just it was like 6 months ago or something.
Uh-huh. Where did you run into him?
It was outside of a restaurant. He looked good, I gotta say.
Uh-huh.
For a failure.
Why is he a failure, though?
He's not in movies no more. Nobody wants him. Same with John Larroquette with these voiceovers.
But these guys, I'm sure Steve Guttenberg is getting paid a good amount of money to do things, and so what if he's not the world's most famous guy anymore?
You can tell it bugs him. How about John Boy? Along with his car commercials.
Who's that?
Richard Thomas.
Oh, okay.
Fail.
Why is that a fail?
Excuse me?
He's working.
Not the kind of work that he wants to be doing. You know it.
Well,
Love it. Great.
Yeah, but then he does this, and it's not the end of the world. He's still going to pay good money.
Still gonna bust on him. We all are.
Who is?
Me and my bandmates.
You're in a band?
Yeah, I'll send you our album when we've done it. Hope you got a cassette player there. That's all it's coming out on. Hilarious.
What? No, that sounds impractical. Not hilarious.
No. Great.
What is your band called?
Excuse me?
What's your band called?
Fribble.
Fribble?
Yeah.
What's a fribble?
Oh, come on.
No, it sounds...
You never... Ask your call screen. What's his name?
Mike.
Mort?
No, not Mort. Do you know what's a fribble, Mike? He's saying it's a thing from Star Trek, but that's a tribble.
That's a... Jeez, I can't believe you guys have a show.
The fribble... Oh, I know what a fribble is.
One word describes this show.
What?
Fail.
Fail. A fribble's the thing from Friendlies. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. It's like a milkshake.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're doing a thing. Your band is called Fribble, like after.
Yeah, we used to call it Play a Fist. Great.
Why are you? It seems like everything is stupid with you.
It's great though. It's fun. It's hilarious.
Is it?
Oh yeah. So I'll send you Getting It On when we're done.
What is that? What is that? What is Getting It On?
That's the album. The album. You're gonna drop one when you see the poster for it.
What is the poster?
Actually, it's gonna be the poster and the cover. It's basically the lobby card poster for Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. But it's us as those characters. So stupid, it's great.
So you put yourself onto the poster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that it? Okay. That's the name of your album.
Yeah.
Getting It On.
Yeah. We're actually doing a big show next week. Yeah, it's going to be with these pretzels are making me thirsty and Sherman Hemsley, Must Live, No Die.
I don't know any of those bands.
Oh my God, they're great. They're hilarious.
What's it called? Sherman Hemsley Must Live?
No, comma, no die.
Okay.
Yeah, what?
I don't know. That's
get it?
No, I don't get it.
Great. You're not supposed to get it. It's not cool to you. For us.
Okay.
We're going to have this great show in the
crib. What is the crib? Is that a club?
No, it's the crib.
Your place?
No, it's a crib. Or I'll tell you one thing. Our crib is going to make your crib will make you some Katie toys.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Your crib. Remember a few months ago you were talking about you wanted to build a big crib in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I was joking.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, because we thought that was the most awesome idea. So me and my friend Chantal, Simon, and Joshua are building one in Chantal's performance space.
You're building an actual crib.
It's huge, yeah. It's going to be so amazing. It's going to be big enough that you can play kickball in it.
But okay, how big is that then?
Well, it's huge. It's like it's inside a big warehouse. Yeah.
And that's you're going to do shows inside that crib?
Oh yeah. And the first show that I just mentioned, it's going to be part of this big Duck Duck Goose benefit we're putting on.
Why are you doing a Duck Duck Goose benefit?
Well, to pay for the crib. Why don't you like Duck Duck Goose? It's fun.
Why don't I like... But this is the stuff. This is the stuff I was talking about with Brooklyn. I was making fun of that. I was teasing.
Why? Don't make fun of Brooklyn.
I'm just good. I was...
Great.
It's
hilarious.
It's fine. I like Brooklyn.
Oh, geez, thanks. Jeepers.
No, I was...
Thanks for your approval. It means nothing to us. Old man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you're not in the Duck Duck Goose, there's other stuff. We're going to have finger painting.
Okay. finger painting.
Sorry, I got some twist went down the wrong pipe there.
Uh-huh.
We're going to have a stupid mustache contest. Saved by the Bell trivia.
Uh-huh.
Of course, nap time.
Nap time?
Oh, yeah. It's going to be great.
You mean like an actual nap?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we all shut down for like 20 minutes and pull out a little bankies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, little bubbies.
Mm-hmm.
We hunker down.
It sounds great.
It's great. It's awesome.
Uh-huh.
Really great.
It sounds like it sounds like you're between everything you've mentioned, everything about the Golden Girls, David Hasselhoff, and a Slee Stack, and all this stuff. It sounds like you're just so. But you're talking about all this stuff, but you're saying everything is stupid.
It is stupid.
What's that?
Nothing. It just No, you're right. It is.
Uh-huh. What do you? I don't. Then why are you doing it then?
I don't know. I actually wonder that too. Sometimes.
You wonder why you're doing it?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just kind of tired sometimes.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'd like to be more of an adult, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I just can't though.
Because it sounds like you're so caught up in this thing. Like you just.
I'm the leader.
Uh-huh. The leader of what?
This whole thing.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, like I just said, it's between you and me. Sometimes it gets to be too much. You know, I'm kind of tired of dressing like a tennis player from the '70s.
Like a tennis player, what are you wearing?
Oh, like Gary cloth shorts, shoe socks, a striper T-shirt I paid $125 for, sweatband on my head, aviator shades.
Yeah.
I'm also kind of tired of being pudgy. But that's my look. I kind of look like Ron Jeremy. It's pretty funny. Maybe it's not.
You're allowed to stop with this stuff, Like
women like being around me first, because of my sarcasm and stuff, and I bust on everything. But then they get tired of it or something.
Uh-huh. I mean, you're allowed to kind of just be yourself at some point.
I don't even know who that is anymore, man.
You don't even know?
I don't know who I don't know.
Uh-huh.
It's like the other day, in that record store in Greenpoint, in that store that only sells Pez-flavored snow cones.
Uh-huh. It's only what kind of snow cones?
Pez-flavored. You've been there, right?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I was about to walk up to the counter with this Scott Walker CD.
Yeah.
This kid came in who comes to see me DJ at Romper Room.
Yeah.
It's great. I play all these hilariously awful songs from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Like Color Me Bad and Men Without Hats and Four Non-Blondes.
Uh-huh.
Just the most unintentionally hilarious stuff.
Sure.
Great.
But so you were going to buy this Scott Walker CD, kind of like deep, heavy, introspective stuff.
Yeah, it was. Well, I was going to buy it, and I saw this kid, and he saw me, and he started coming up. Mm-hmm. So I quick ditched the Scott Walker CD, and I ended up buying that Chris Gaines CD.
That's the Garth Brooks, like his alter ego that he did.
Yeah.
It's like one of the worst things I've ever heard.
It's so bad, man.
Uh-huh.
It's so bad. It's great.
Uh-huh.
It's not that great.
Why did you do that?
I already had it too. That's the worst.
So you bought another copy of the Chris Gaines CD.
Yeah. I couldn't let that kid down.
Does he care though? Do you think?
I'm sure he does. You should have seen his eyes light up when I showed it to him. He started laughing. He's like, "Oh my God, that looks so bad. It looks hilarious." And I said, "Yeah."
Man, you gotta. You gotta get this in check. You can do whatever you want.
Oh.
What?
Oh, I just bent down to pick something up. My knee. My knee's really killing me. Oh, I had surgery on it.
Oh man, what's wrong with your knee?
I don't know. It's just, I had surgery on it back when I was in college. I screwed it up in a show. I've never been the same. I just started acting up lately. It was worth it though. Nirvana were great.
So, hold on. Wait, hold on. You're saying...
Yeah.
How old are you?
Why?
Because I think I might... How old are you?
44 and a half.
What's that? 44 and a half.
Yeah.
Why would you say the half age?
That's my thing. I always do that. We all do that.
No, the kids do that.
Yeah.
But you're 44
and a half.
And a half.
Why?
I don't know why. I thought you were much younger.
Everybody does.
Uh-huh. Well, Terrence, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you got to get your own life back at some point.
Oh, I do. I always, whenever things get rough and I get down and I spiral, I always think about, at least I have Mr. T.
You know Mr. T?
No, I have Mr. T.
I'm not following.
My son.
Your son?
Yeah.
You call your son Mr. T?
No, that's his name.
Well, what's his real name?
Mr.T. That's his actual name.
You named your son Mr. T?
Shropshire, yes.
Your last name is Shropshire?
Yes.
Why would you name your kid Mr. T?
Cool. It's hilarious, isn't it?
It's not hilarious.
Great.
It's not great.
He's awesome now. He's great. He's like a little me.
Mr. T?
He's like his old dad. Yeah. Like right now, he's wearing parachute pants, these Dagla flip-flops, and a Britney Fox t-shirt.
And how old is he?
He's 8. He's got this great fake handlebar mustache, too.
Why are you doing this to your kid?
Oh, he loves it. He's got this rat tail. He looks insane. He's smoking a fake pipe.
This is terrible. This is an 8-year-old you're talking
about.
Oh,
hey, don't get on me. My ex gives me enough of that stuff.
What do you mean with doing all this stuff?
His mommy, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she wants nothing to do with me.
Well, so you two broke up and...
Oh yeah. And she gets him sometimes, but I pretty much have him. Pretty much fine.
But then you dress him like this.
Yeah, but she dresses him normal. It's sad. He's so joyful when he's around me, and I dress him. Cries, tears of joy. Always crying.
Yeah.
Especially when I send him off to school in his little vintage members only jacket. Shades and a Cameo baseball cap. Remember Cameo? The guy with that hair? It was insane looking.
Yeah.
Word up.
So you make him... Are you sure he wants to dress... No, I'm sure no other kid at school is dressed like this. And look, I'm saying...
Why else would he be crying those tears of joy?
Are you sure that they're tears of joy?
I never really asked him. He just I push him out the door and he's crying. It just seems like that'd be something he'd be thrilled about. Yeah.
I don't know if those are tears of joy.
Do you think maybe... What do you think? Maybe he's... ashamed?
Maybe, yeah. I think... And look, kids should be individuals, too. They're allowed to have their own personality and their own style. But are you sure you're not forcing your style on him?
Who wouldn't want to look like that?
Well, maybe not an 8-year-old.
I don't know. I take him to all the cool clubs, but he honestly doesn't seem that into it. Heartbreaking. for me.
Yeah. Like, where do you take him?
Oh, to clubs and stuff. He watches me DJ and stuff. And we went to go see this great show, Cheeseburger were playing.
Mm-hmm.
Great. It was so loud. He loved it. He was screaming.
This is terrible.
Oh, he loves it.
This is like child abuse.
I wrote a song about him.
About your son?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I actually brought some Fribble. But right before we got to it, I got to sing in it.
Yeah.
I started playing it up on the guitar and I was about to sing the first line.
Well, what was the song? Was like a...
The song was very serious. It's called Little Angel Boy. It's about how he's in my life and what a great thing he is. A great new thing for me to have in my life.
Sure.
I was about to sing the first line, which is it basically says that you're such a special little boy. And the way I became into my life, but I can celebrate. So I was about to sing that guys were going to laugh at me.
In the band.
Yeah. So I quickly changed it from Little Angel Boy.
Yeah.
Who ate my dipping strips?
You actually had it sounds like you had a nice song written about your son. And then
it was nice, and then it ended up being about getting drunk at a Pizza Hut, passing out, and then when you wake up, your dipping strips are gone.
Why could you not just do the grown-up song?
I was just scared, I guess. I don't know. I knew they'd laugh at me. They would laugh at me. They'd be right to laugh at me. But it's not hilarious. It's not great. Nothing great about it.
Everything does not have to be hilarious. I mean, you're allowed to live outside of irony at some point.
Yeah, that's not for me. I should get rolling soon. Too close for comfort's on like 2 minutes. And it's my turn to provide the Twizzlers.
What do you mean?
I got to run this.
Why are you... Okay, so everybody... Who's going to watch Too Close for Comfort?
All the people in the band and stuff.
Okay.
Mr. T, too, I got to wake him up and, bring him out.
Well, why not just let him sleep?
Nah, he loves it. He loves it so much that he screams. It's great. He's so excited.
This is... Just let your son sleep. It's all right to just be yourself, Terrence.
You know what?
What?
No.
It's not? Wow. That was disturbing. That poor guy. Yeah, lost soul. I agree. Poor guy.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Best Show Gems. This is a sampling of the full 3-hour Best Show on WFMU, which can be heard each and every Tuesday night live at WFMU.org. Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. until midnight Eastern Standard Time. You can listen anywhere on the globe at WFMU.org. If you're in the New York area, you can listen over your radio at 91.1. If you're in the Hudson Valley area, outside of New York City, check out the show at 90.1. And if you need more information on the show, go to friendsoftom.com. That is the Best Show on WFMU website. I want to thank a few people who are instrumental in making sure this show takes place every other week. I want to thank Martin DeGrell, who is the executive producer of Best Show Gems and the curator of this program. Thank you, Martin.
It's going to be huge. possible.